Welcome back to another art tutorial. I'm your host, Avon Waters, and today I want to talk about palettes. I'm not talking about the kind of palettes that artists hold. I'm talking about color palettes. And as a pastelist, it's a mystery. When you buy a set of pastels, how do I organize these pastels into something that I can use? So today we're going to demystify setting up your pastel palette. So let's get to it. Every time you buy a set of pastels, they come in a nice little box and they're all organized in these nice, neat little rows. But if you buy pastels from a different manufacturer, what you'll find is that they're organized in different manners. In this particular set of pastels, we have a set of grays over on the right-hand side, and then you'll notice that the color hues, or the colors that we refer to as yellow, red, blue, green, and brown oranges, because we got some oranges down in the yellows and we got some oranges down in the grays. So the colors that we normally refer to, the hues, are separated in this particular case. And if you have looked at color theory in my past episodes and the videos below, I'll try to remember to link it. There's a video on color theory where I talk about the color wheel, and I talk about how the color wheel is set up and the terms that are on the color wheel. In this particular case, the manufacturer has taken the more chromatic or purer colors and put them in some of the various places in this row. Now, in the reds and the greens, it's more evident, but you can see that as the colors go for the more pure green or the more pure red, the colors come down and they become a shade. A shade is where the manufacturer has probably added black to the pigment to create these darker shades of this red or red-orange, that it looks like white has been added to it. So in the case of these reds, the manufacturer has the red and adds a little yellow to it from this side of the palette, adds a little yellow to it to get some of these red oranges. The color on my monitor is not showing, but they're a little brighter orange than what you see here. And as you get into here, the whites have been added. And then black has been added to this almost pure red, or whatever's purest red for this particular manufacturer. It's just a set of 72, so that's probably not a pure red. Each manufacturer does this, and this one is all over the place. And the blues, you have what looks like black has been added to a blue to achieve these colors, and then white has been added to the blue to achieve some of these colors, along with some of the greens have been added. The spectrum is moving all around in this particular set. So how do you use these sets in order to make sense when you're getting ready to paint? That is where it's up to each individual artist. My pastel palette, I have set my pastel palette up into grays. And I create 5 distinct areas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that I place my various color hues into, but by value. I am a value painter. My purpose and the way I want to set up my pastels is by value. This organized space here is to show you how I could set them up not only by value, but set them up where my blues and violets are here, move my way into some greens, and then the blues and violets move into some of the reds and oranges, and eventually you get into some yellows. Now these are all set up by value, meaning that values 6, 7, and 8, if you turn this to gray, values 6, 7, and 8 are all in this particular box. Values 9 and 10 are in this particular box. Now you see those are all mixed up. Some people are very, very organized and like to be able to save time by, I don't have to search for this color. I have my blues here, and I have my reds and greens here, and I have my yellows and oranges here with some of the paler blues here. If you like to set it up that way, then you're much more organized than me. I just like to have them by value, and I like to dig through. If you see this material, this is cornmeal, and by digging through, just the action of digging through this cornmeal keeps these pastels clean. I don't have to take them out and clean them every time I want to see what color is there. So my trays are normally scattered about and mixed up. And if you turn this to gray, you'll see how the values of 9 and 10 appear to be just various shades of gray. And the same here. The values are 6, 7, and 8. And as 6, 7, and 8, look, you have a bright color next to some dark colors. Our eyes see that as a contrast. That's because values, when turned to gray, these colors are equal to one another on a grayscale, and I can put them side by side and they won't vibrate and pop off the page like they're out of place. That's why I paint with values. So you can set your pastels up something like the manufacturer and set them up with all your yellows and your reds and move over to your blues and your violets and your greens and your oranges, and then put your grays on one end and keep them all very organized. But any way that you decide to set up your palette is valid. The important thing is you have to identify what kind of painter you are. Are you a painter that is organized and you want everything by color, whether you're going by chroma or whether you're going by value? You want to set up your palette in a way that saves you time. As I said, some people prefer what's on the right, more organized. That will save them a lot of time. And saving time as you're painting, you get on a roll, and when you are painting, you get in this zone where it's like you want to drop one color, grab another color, and keep going because your focus is on the piece. I need more time to think, and by me fingering through to figure out which color I want, I'm thinking about also what the next steps are and how I'm going to apply these particular color hues once I select what I want. So for me, having them disorganized is saving me time rather than grabbing a piece and then sitting back and thinking about how and where am I going to apply this. So each artist is different. Okay, let me explain how I put those in those 5 different trays, or sometimes they're called zones. This is a grayscale. A circular color wheel also has a grayscale usually, but I purchased this grayscale from, I think it was Dick Blick or Jerry's. It's called the Color Wheel Company, the same one that makes my color wheel. And the grayscale is set up into 10 different zones. Black has a value of 1 and white has a value of 10. Now, if you take any of these colors, any color in the world, and you change it to black and white, it will fall somewhere in this value scale. So because I want to set my palette up not by color and hue but by values, then this is the way I do it. This is a new set of, I believe it's called Geralt Pastels. I won it as part of a prize with a national competition in Las Vegas with the Red Rock Pastel Society national competition last year. They sent me this as part of my prize, and all the colors were in here at one time, similar to the palette that I showed you earlier from a different manufacturer. So now my job is to figure out what values or gray values these are. Another video, which like I said, I'll try to put the link below, where I discuss painting by value, we go through a squinting method to figure this out. But if you haven't, well, it gives me a headache. If I'm going to do a whole set like this and I squint, I'll eventually get a headache because I'm using all my muscles to squeeze down my eyelids and forehead so that I can see the gray value and block out the color. I'll take my colors and I will mark them down on a piece of paper. It's always best to do this with a piece of paper that is near white or beige. If you put it on a dark color or a piece of paper that's tinted, you may not get as true of a value setting as you will against the beige or gray. You'll get pretty close. But I just like to do it with a piece of scrap UArt paper since I use UArt Sanded 400. So here you can see the different colors and the different hues, colors. They're all different saturation. Some have white added to it. It looks like this might have a little black to give us a shade. We have shades and tints all mixed up in this box, and we have to change them now either by squinting or we change them by mechanical means, and I like to use my phone or a camera in order to do that. And then what we'll do is we'll compare those black and white monotone images, and we'll figure out which value each one of these colors falls onto the grayscale. And once I figure out what value it is, I know which of my 5 boxes to put my values in. So 8, 9, and 10 go into one of the cells. 6 and 7 go into the other cell. I like to keep 3 all by itself because 1 and 2 are the darkest values. I go through this process, change it to black and white, and then determine which one of my 5 trays out of the 10 gray values, and I place those into the trays. That's how I separate my values. Now I won't do it for all of it, but just to give you an example, I've turned these to black and white in my camera, and this particular really bright red orange, it looks like it would fall somewhere down in here, but it falls between value 2 and value 3. It's in between these two. So I can put it in my box of value 3, but I'll probably stick it in my value 1 and 2 box because I need a nice bright color sometimes when I'm painting just with values 1 and 2. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this in that particular box. I do the same process throughout the rest of the colors that are in the box, and I determine where they are. So many times you find out that, oh, there's no one answer to this, and there isn't. When you set up your palette, think about what kind of artist you are. Are you in a hurry? Are you wanting time to think? Are you an organized person or a disorganized person? And it would drive you crazy to try to have to remember, where did I pick this piece, this color up? So here's a thing about this particular palette that I made. You see these little trays? These little trays, as I pick a piece up and I use it, on that piece, I'll set it aside in that tray. And if I use this next to it, or I want to add a little green to my yellows, I put them in this tray, and it doesn't mean I have to go back and find those 3 pastels in all these many hundreds of pastels. So you find these labor-saving ways, and a palette that is homemade is basically probably the best palette that you can get. I hope this has helped you some, and if you find out that these videos are helping, these tutorials, I have many of them on color theory, on the color wheel, and many other aspects of color and art with pastels. And as a pastel painter, some of the color theory applies to other mediums, so if you are an acrylic painter or a watercolorist or an oil painter, the color theory and learning how to manage the color wheel and some of the gray value tutorials that I do will help you. So if you find these help you, please, by all means, hit the subscribe button. If you want notifications, hit the notification button so that you know every time I post a video. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you got something out of that. If you do, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want notifications every time I post a new video talking about small tutorials for an aspect of art, especially color theory and value painting, I focus a lot on that. Please hit the notification and subscribe. So until next time, happy painting and so long.